Okay, I'm watching.
University as we know it is getting an upgrade. Swinburne University's deep industry partnerships give you real industry experience with innovation and creativity in every course, connecting you to your career faster. So, when does the next generation of university arrive? Now. Swinburne, next gen, now.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jos, and I am with the Swinburne Vietnam Student HQ team, and I'll be your host for today. I'm honored to welcome you all to Swinburne Vietnam's second episode of the Changemakers Series. This is an innovative series of conversations where we will have a number of highly acclaimed and respected members of the global community joining our discussions to talk about various aspects of their lives, careers, and the roles of changemakers in the modern world. Now, to all of our viewers, don't forget that with this being a live stream Q&A, we want to hear about all of the questions that our audience have. So all you have to do is post your questions during the live stream, and we'll try to answer as many of them at the end as possible. Now, it's an honor to welcome today's guest, Ms. Julianne Cowley. Julianne is a senior officer with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and has served as Assistant Secretary in Health Policy, Staff Welfare, and People Policy and Planning branches. Julianne also worked in the Office of the Parliamentary Secretary for International Development Assistance. Prior to international development, Julianne worked in Indigenous education. She was a founding board member of the Asia-Pacific Leaders Malaria Alliance and the AU Foundation in Thailand, and was vice president on the board of Lifeline Canberra. For several years, Julianne worked for the Australian Prime Minister's Community Business Partnership. She holds a Master's in Business Administration, a Bachelor of Communication, and a Graduate Diploma in Education, an Associate in Music, and is an accredited partnership broker. Julianne has been Australia's Consul General in Ho Chi Minh City since December 2018. We're honoured to have you with us today, Julianne, and I'm certain our audience is looking forward to hearing your insightful thoughts. Would you like to say a few words before we continue?
Thank you very much. That's a lovely introduction, but I'm very pleased to be part of this conversation. And thank you very much, Dr. Hai, and to Swinburne University. It's fantastic to connect.
Thanks very much, Julianne. Next up, we also have Dr. Marisha McAuliffe, Director of Student HQ at Swinburne Vietnam. Marisha, would you like to say a few things?
Yes, good morning, everybody, and good morning, Julianne and Dr. Ha. Julianne, it truly is a pleasure to have you on board with us, and we look forward to hearing more about leadership and change makers. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marisha. And finally, joining us today, we have Director of Swinburne Vietnam, Dr. Quang Viet Ha.
Yes, good morning, everyone, Miss Julianne, and good morning, Jock and Marisa. It's an honor for me and all students at Swinburne to welcome Mr. Julianne to share with us in our Changemakers series. And the topic today is about leader born or made. So at Swinburne, we promote the value of Changemaker, and we focus very much on the attitude of students. And the attitude can be born or made. So you have more question about that today, and you would have that information today. And we are not so much focused on students with strong profile, but more focused on students have a strong mindset of change for the better future. And now I would leave the stage for Jock and to Marisa and our special guest today, Julianne. And thank you very much for the spending time with us. And thank you all of you for your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ha, for your introduction. Now, without further ado, let's move on to the main section for today. And we can allow our audience to hear from our special guest. So, Marisha, would you like to ask the first question for today?
Yes, sure. Julianne, we see that a change maker is someone who is able to inspire and lead others. How do you do this as a leader in your position, especially during a pandemic?
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad the first question is not as of today of leaders born and made. When we were talking about putting that together, I then quickly thought, I'm not sure I have the answer to leaders born or made. So we might come to that over the next hour chatting together. But certainly, I think reflecting in this period, it has been really interesting to think about how to inspire. And there's a lot in that for leaders and for managers. And COVID has brought completely new challenges, I think, for all leaders. It doesn't matter what industries we're in, what sectors, and what we've been facing. And that's why I thought this morning it's very interesting to connect with students and those studying at Swinburne University, because I imagine the challenges in this period have been like no other time either, to think about as a student how to remain engaged, inspired and motivated, and no doubt the leadership at the university has been thinking about those challenges as well as things have changed. Look, I mean, maybe, Marisha, it might be if I kind of give a story from early on in my career that I reflect on a little bit. Is that? Yeah, okay.
Yes, we'd love to hear.
You know, thinking about inspiring as leaders, one of the things is always, as a leader, thinking about what are the leaders that I've worked for, or who have people worked for that you look up to and that you've been inspired yourself. And I think kind of having those role models that we all look out for is an incredibly useful thing. And thinking about this topic, I was thinking back early in my career when there was an organisation that I really, really wanted to work for. And I'd picked this organisation. It had aligned with my values, and I thought about it a lot, and I just really, really wanted to work there. So I set about pretty deliberately trying to get a job there. And it took me 9 months of persistent knocking on doors and cold calling and emailing and going for coffees and building my networks. And I just set about convincing this organisation that I'd have something to offer, and that they'd do well to take me on. Luckily, after a long time and sending them samples of work and being persistent, maybe they just thought I would never leave them alone. But anyway, they gave me a chance, and they gave me a job. So I was thrilled, and I kind of now think, maybe that was quite bolshy of me. I was quite young in doing that, but I was so determined and so passionate. Yeah. And maybe for any organisation, if they have someone continually, maybe they think I wouldn't leave them alone, so they better let me in. But anyway, when I turned up at this organisation, I was thrilled to find out that it actually was everything that I hoped it would be. I put all of this energy and effort in it. And when I turned up to work in this job, I worked for a leader who was absolutely outstanding. And I think this might have just been luck of the draw, but she had come back from maternity leave and was flexible and a part-time worker. And that just added to the opportunity. On the days where she wasn't there, I was able to act in her role. It extended my skills. She expected the work to continue. We worked together, and I watched this leader do a few things that I've never forgotten. One thing was that she thought about everyone in the team as individuals, and she looked at each of us and thought about what skills we had, what experience, and what we needed to learn and could value from. And she even went to the effort of identifying the learning and development that we could do and pitched that to us and encouraged us and supported us, which was amazing. Could you imagine being in an organisation where someone cares about you as an individual and thinks about your skill set and how to support and develop you? So automatically, you can imagine, I felt valued, and not only valued by this one leader, but by this organisation. She wasn't just developing me for her team. She was having a conversation with me about where I could go in this organisation and what opportunities I could have. And so, I came to work in a spring in my step. I was there early. I, worked incredibly hard. I was so happy to have scored this dream job in this organisation. And then that leader got pregnant again and lined up for a second time to go on maternity leave. And I had a new boss come into this area that I was working in. And overnight, everything changed. The new leader would come in the morning and go straight into her office and shut the door and not say good morning and start emailing, emailing the instructions and directions. And it was fascinating because I thought, okay, you know, one of the things I really believe in is that we all should take responsibility for the workplaces and the culture of workplaces. And so I thought, okay, I can influence here, and I will, you know, go up and knock on the door and say good morning and encourage and contribute to the culture that I want to be. And, you know, we all work with very different personalities and people, and that's part of it. Yeah. But the other interesting thing that happened during this time was I went from performing so well in my job and writing complex briefs in simple ways and you know, as excellent writer, it's something I was really proud of, to submitting pieces of work to this new boss that would come back with red pen all over them. And all of a sudden I couldn't do the job that I was able to do. I'd keep doing work and it wasn't good enough. And after a while, you can imagine the work that I was putting up then wasn't as good because I knew it was going to come back. This demotivation, and I spiraled into, you know, this performing employee that wasn't performing anymore. And I was not coming to work with a spring in my step. I was not enjoying, you know, this role that I'd loved. And all of it was due to this manager swap. You know, it was a really incredible experience. When I reflect on this period, you know, as grateful as I was to work for that first manager, and as much as she taught me about inspiring people and leadership and management, I actually ended up in my career more grateful to have worked for the second manager because I learned a lot more in that experience. Yeah, sorry, that's a long introduction story, but I think one of the very formative experiences that I had early on in my career.
Yeah, and that's so fascinating because, you know, being able to learn from the negatives as well as the positives, but also turning a situation from being something that is really quite negative into something, okay, what have I learned out of this? How have I grown as an individual, you know, both as a person, as a professional? So, Jos, you had the next question, a really interesting one, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much for your answer there. And that was a really interesting story. I think it's always fascinating to hear, you know, people's perceptions of, you know, their earlier life and your career, particularly when people are talking about their leaders and you know, how different leaders will interact with their, you know, with the people who, with their teams or the people that they're leading, and, you know, what that can eventually do to your motivation, or, like, you know, what that can do to a team's motivation and where they will then move on from there. Yeah, that was great. Thank you. So my question for you is, what kinds of examples of change making have you seen in leaders in Ho Chi Minh City, not just in your organization, but the city as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly kind of a reflection most recently on COVID times, and there'll be no surprise that, you know, I reflect on that. And I think, again, it's thinking about leaders that are impacted by the external conditions and what's happening. And so, again, in that first story, you know, you're right, it's about taking and learnings from both when we're working with managers that suit our style, and hopefully we have a career where we get to work with a lot of those people, but then also working with managers that don't necessarily suit our style or challenge us. There's still the opportunity to learn. And that's what I've seen certainly in this period in COVID, and then more broadly in Ho Chi Minh City, that this period has given all of us, whether we like it or not, the chance to learn and to grow and to meet a new challenge. And wow, what a challenge. You know, for personally, professionally, as leaders, as certainly I imagine as students going through this as well, it's not the situation that any of us would have chosen. I would not have chosen to stay inside for 5 months with three small children and homeschool and try and, you know, do all the things. But that's the situation we have. So then what I think you see in the very good leaders around, and certainly I think there's some exceptional leadership. You know, I can reflect on that at home when I look back to Australia as well as here. These circumstances are incredibly challenging. There are leaders who are absolutely standing up everywhere. And they're doing that by reflecting on their own styles, by understanding who they're leading for, by being very clear about what their direction is, what are the challenges on the plate, what do they need to achieve, who are they communicating with, and what are the best ways to get there. And it's, I think we've seen globally, and then in all of our sectors and fields, a very different kind of leadership that we've needed.
That's very, very interesting. Julianne, and you know, thinking about that, what do you think we can do as small individuals to, you know, you say, you know, we've seen extraordinary leadership, and especially in we think, you know, maybe I think of it as a post-COVID world, but maybe COVID never will go away. But, you know, you're talking about, you know, people stepping up to the plate. But what do you think, you know, the smaller, when I say small individuals, can do to lead and inspire others, especially during the time? I mean, if you think about students, you know, what can they do in their leadership and be change makers and leaders like you are yourself? Obviously different role and different responsibilities.
I think that's an excellent question, Marisha, and it is around recognising that because we're all facing this challenge, that gives us then the same opportunity to demonstrate leadership to respond to it. It's not reliant upon the role or the title that you hold to do that. And you're right, it is about identifying the very practical small things that each of us can do. When I think about that across my teams in the last period, you know, certainly it's been about communication. And I think it's interesting when organisations say, okay, people are our most important resource. Okay, if that's the case, then how are we demonstrating that? And how are we doing that every day? And that's, again, back to that first story that I was reflecting on. Everyone has a responsibility for the culture that they create in an organisation or a workplace or as a student in a university. We all contribute to it. So if we all want to be in a good, vibrant place to work where people are motivated, we all have to bring something to it. And then that comes down to the little things. And I think what I've noticed and valued the most with across my teams are the people checking in with each other, noticing how people are going, you know, when people aren't having a good week, stepping up to the plate and offering to help. And in small ways, you know, as students, I imagine it might be sharing notes or, you know, catching a lecture for someone or offering to study partner or just the text of how are you going. I've noticed that, you know, you weren't traveling as well last week. These small acts of kindness, you know, I mean, I've had employees that have just left a bar of chocolate on my desk, and you know what, on the day that they did that, that was what I really needed, or a cup of tea, or, and then I've done the same back. And where we look after each other, because everyone's on this roller coaster of there are days where we're up and there are days where we're not, and acknowledging that, but knowing that you can make a huge difference to someone just by checking in with them is pretty powerful.
Brilliant, brilliant. And Jos, this is your area, isn't it? With well-being at Swinburne. It's certainly, I'm sure you'll have a question out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, Julianne, you're absolutely right in terms of like these small, you know, it can be the smallest gesture to somebody, but you can completely change, you know, the way that they're, or you can be the support strut for them and completely, you know, change the way that they are thinking and, you know, really, really help out. And that's kind of, I think, one of the great signs of a sign of a really great leader is somebody who can be intuitive and, you know, without having to have too many words and without having to have a big old, you know, a big old chat about something, can just notice small things and, you know, do make a change to somebody's day or week, you know, by, you know, very, very small small, meaningful things.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I have another question for you, Julianne. This one is talking about skills. So along with the normal set of soft skills, what do you believe are the critical additional skills required of post-COVID change makers?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. I think there's two clear things for me. One, you know, as we're talking about, yes, it's welfare and checking in with people, mental health, and that's key. The two things for me, though, are communication, but also maintaining a very clear vision and sense of our purpose and what we need to deliver. And so for my organisation here, it's serving Australians. We deliver consular services, and we've had Australians in really tough situations throughout COVID, you can imagine. And when that happens, I have a brilliant team of people who are there who deliver services. So my team needs to be functioning and in a good place and okay in and of themselves and as individuals and what they're facing. Work always follows us home. It's not a 9-to-5 thing. We can't just put it in a box. If things are happening outside work that impact us, they impact us as people. You bring your whole self to work. So that the people need to be okay, but they also need to not lose sight of what we need to deliver, and that kind of clarity on making sure that we still perform as an excellent team and that our output is there and our vision and we're delivering and doing what we need to do as our mission mustn't disappear, even though it's tough and even though the circumstances have changed. And if you can get that balance between making sure people are okay but making sure we still deliver and do what we need to do, then there's a great satisfaction that can be found in that for a team to be a high performing and high achieving team that still maintains that output. And to do all of that, it's about how you communicate. So you're still communicating to people. Here is our vision. Here is our mission. Here is, you know, what we're about and what we need to do. And I think the ways in which we've needed to communicate have certainly challenged and changed. You know, I spent a lot more time doing video updates to staff, which I never ever thought I would do. I'm very, you know, grew up in the school of having a staff meeting where you stand up in front of people or you walk around the floor and talk face to face. So actually working out as a leader, are you still talking to people? Are you still connecting? When did they hear from you last? Have you reinforced the clear messaging that you need to, and doing that through the mechanisms that we need to because of COVID?
Yeah, that's great. I think it's a very pertinent point that, you know, post-COVID, people's soft skills and the skills required have had to make such a big shift from, you know, what things were like before COVID. So, you know, exactly what you're saying there is doing video updates for staff is something that, yeah, I don't think anyone would have expected something like that to happen. But yeah, I think yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know if you wanted to say anything on that, Marisha.
You know, listening to all of this, it makes me sort of want to ask a question that perhaps, what do you think? I mean, I'm thinking about, you know, which would segue into the next question is, you know, the difference between leadership and management. You know, people get the two confused all the time. And I think that in my experience, from what I'm hearing also from you, it's about leadership as giving hope and inspiration, especially during this time. But let's, you know, what do you see the difference is between management and leadership, Julianne?
Well, I think that's an excellent question that everyone should have an answer to immediately, because I've been asked it in many interviews before. I'm not sure I answered it well in the interviews. I'm trying to think back. Look, there's a lot of textbooks and management theories and all of this. I think kind of the standard answer I go to is management is looking at the resources and managing your, you know, your money and undertakings and deliverables, and leadership is much more about, as you're saying, the inspiration and vision. But I think that's potentially changing through COVID and now what we need to do, because I don't think that there's as much space to just have excellent managers anymore. who can deliver fantastic outcomes and project manage and use all the resources to, you know, be very effective and all of those kind of things, without having people, and again, this is what we see with new generations coming into the workplace. We have higher demands on what the workplace should mean to us now, and I see kind of as new generations come in, they want work to be something that is aligned to values and that they're passionate about and that they can contribute. And you know, we're talking about a change making series, so what change can I have the influence to do? And as a leader, I think you've really got to start to think about that and understand that that comes to the heart of motivating people and engaging them as their whole person in the workplace. So how do we continue as individual people? I spend a lot of time making sure that I'm as energetic and passionate and enthusiastic about the jobs that I do. Because if I don't have that, how am I supposed to, you know, encourage that in others? So, and, you know, if I reflect on the roles that I've held, incredibly lucky to have jobs that I love. I love my job. I love my work. I always have. I've always found roles with fascinating, interesting work, and therefore you always attract and have fascinating, interesting people to work alongside. You know, that is really whatever roles there are. I mean, that's got to be key to a happy life, right? I think so.
Yeah, exactly, and fantastic. So, you know, thinking about, definitely there's been a shift in leadership and shift in understanding about leadership and about management, you know, in this world. I think we've become far more self-reflective, and, you know, what good can we do in the world? What, you know, how good can we make it for each other, which is the essential part of being a change maker. Jos, you had another couple of questions.
Yeah, sure. So what, this is a question that we ask all of the, we're asking all of our guests on the Changemakers series, because I think it will vary drastically from each of our guests. So my question for you is, how do we inspire our students to become change makers now?
Yes, that's a big question. Now I wish I watched, you said this is the second, so I wish I watched the first so I could just copy what they said. How do we inspire students? Okay. Well, that's going to be different for each different student maybe. But we inspire people by bringing our own enthusiasm to it. And this is what I love. I mean, every time I connect with universities, and particularly universities like Swinburne, it makes me feel like I want to go back and enroll and study more, because the thing that's exciting is when you get people together with ideas and you give them space to talk and engage and contest and debate and connect with each other. And this is what Swinburne's doing and does, and encourages in students that open thinking, and that they can contribute their voice and their passion and find their passion. So if you don't know what you want to do, that's fine. I mean, I'm not sure that I've ever known what I want to do. But so long as you find areas where you can put your energy and start creating something that's positive and bring all your energy and dedicate it yourself and be passionate, I think that's what inspiration feels like, and that can look really differently to everyone. So how do we inspire students? We give them space to think openly, to contest ideas, to debate, and to put forward their voice and find their own voice in doing that, and become really strong in understanding what their individual values are and what they're driven by.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I completely agree. I think that students should be given a lot of autonomy to develop themselves, to understand where they fit in, and it can't be this cookie cutter plan of how a student needs to learn and the way that they need to be successful. It's very finding their own way. Yeah, I thought that was a great answer. Do you have any more questions, Marisha? Oh, I think we.
There we go.
Oh, sorry, you there, Marisha?
Yes. I'm just having a few issues. this COVID scenario actually, creates all sorts of issues for us. And today seems to be the worst. I don't know why. Maybe it's coming towards the end of the week and there's more people on Netflix than usual. So, yeah. So, I'm just wondering, Julianne, I mean, this has been absolutely brilliant, to hear from you. Besides that story you told us at the start, what has been a key moment for you where you have thought about yourself as, okay, it sort of hit you, I'm inspiring others. Can you tell me about a moment where it's sort of almost like somebody's held up the mirror and you've, this is me now. Do you have a moment that you might have had that you sort of realized, oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, well, that's a very flattering question, so thank you. I don't know that I'll run in there to say that I know that too much, but I do know that my role in a workplace probably changed a lot when I started having my family, and I have 3 young children. So when I came into this role, I came back off maternity leave into this position, and I brought 3 children under 5 years old to a wonderful country that I'd never been to before, to undertake a role I hadn't done. And I had no idea how all of that would work out. It was quite a huge kind of jump and leap of faith, and for the team that is my family as well. But I think in the workplace, and even before kind of coming to Vietnam, even in Canberra, there is work life changes when we become parents or carers, and that's not just for children. It might be with elderly parents, or when things happen in our home life that we have to balance what we're doing professionally with that. And I then also think people watch very closely, particularly if you're a senior leader, because you set the tone and you can give permission to others just by the way in which you do that. And so I would hope that in kind of being able to take periods of maternity leave, my husband's taken parental leave as well when I've gone back, and then we've both worked part-time, and we've got this kind of 2 jobs in the family to balance that are equally important. But that people who work with me understand that there is a way that we can absolutely be professional, and I highly value high quality work and being professional, and that is a huge priority for me, just as my family are a priority as well. And how do you make that work? And it's a conversation that happens a lot about work-life balance, and particularly with women. I think it's a conversation that absolutely has to happen with men, probably more so. But I think probably for me, it's returned the few times that I've returned from maternity leave in the workplace. And then I think I've been able to demonstrate that ability, that it's not a question of family or career. You can definitely have both, and you can have both at the same time. It's hard, but it's absolutely possible. So that's probably something that I think I'm proud of, still working every day to do, with 3 homeschooling children here right now. And I'm surprised this hasn't been interrupted, but so far so good.
You're a hero. You really are a hero, Julianne. I don't know how you do it. Like, I'm from a large family, and even having siblings is bad enough, but 3 young children and being here and doing the role you're doing, it truly is inspirational. Yosti, I think we're on to the Q&A part now, are we? We have some questions.
Yeah, that's right. So thanks for all of your answers to our questions for today, Julianne. I'm sure the audience has got some really insightful information from you, particularly your words that you were saying about the leadership side of things. So yes, we will go to the Q&A, and we have a bunch of questions that have been sent in. So question number 1 is, how do you think a leader can inspire others while being burnt out? And what do you think we can do to prevent getting burnt out?
Oh, great question. I love that. Thank you. Yes, because you know what, during this period, there's been days where it just has not been good for me. The lockdown in Ho Chi Minh City has been incredible and very personally challenging, you know, and I'll absolutely acknowledge that. But then as a leader, you know, that doesn't mean that I still don't have a job to do. You know, I wouldn't kind of go as far as saying I felt burnt out, which is lucky, but I think absolutely the premise of this question, I think, is in having that self-awareness and being really conscious of how you're traveling. You know, I think sometimes, what is it, when we used to travel on airlines, they'd say on the plane you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. So maybe there's something to that, but I think you need to then be very aware how you are traveling and your impact on others. Again, I go back to that original story. That second leader had a huge impact on me. That I've always taken that and thought about what's my impact on others. We have a privilege in being leaders. We impact people. So you have to always be really aware of what your impact is on others. And then, you know, in the times where we need to, I think you reach out to others. So one of the things that I did during this period was to ask a colleague who wasn't in Ho Chi Minh City to reach out to some of my staff and check in with them about how they're going. Now, that did two things. One, that week, I didn't have the energy to devote to doing that. And two, it was someone external. Perhaps my staff were more comfortable talking to them and telling them something that they didn't want to tell me, but we could become aware of to give them more support. So that was sort of a small example, but a way of if, you know, you make sure that you deliver on your leadership, you know, responsibilities, even if, you know, you're not traveling well, and make that space, and then self-care and all those good things that we know about to concentrate on that leaders need just as much as anyone else.
Yeah. Brilliant answer there. And it is about being self-aware and you know, understanding and recognizing, you know, as a leader, you know, understanding and recognizing, okay, what are the triggers to see that I'm not coping or that I need to take that self-care. I mean, even at your level, Julianne, that's really, really quite important, because, you know, if we don't take care of ourselves first, you're right, it's about the oxygen mask first. If we don't take care of ourselves first, then we run the risk of losing the entire team. Jos, what's our next? We have questions pouring in there. What's our next question?
So the next question we have is, this one's actually really good. So do you think leaders can influence others if they have different values, and how can they work together professionally if differences do exist?
Yes.
Interesting.
I think, again, some of my favourite people to have worked with over the years have had completely different approaches. Values, yes, we value different things, I would say, or put different emphasis on what we think is most important in the values. And they have been the times where I've learnt the most working with them and alongside them. And it's not to go into the room as a leader thinking I have the answer and my approach is right and I'm going to convince everyone. Actually, I think you do a huge disservice doing that. And this comes to the heart of why I think diversity is extremely important in any organisation, in any boardroom, in any table. If you look around and everyone looks like you, thinks like you, has had the same experience as you, that is not a good decision that is going to be made. You always need to be making room for others, and that means others will come with different values, different experiences, and different contributions. And your job as a leader is not to convince or change or align that, it's to make space for that to be heard, and for that person to know that there is a role for them in the organisation and that they're valued as well. And then the key thing being that we're all working in the same direction for the work goal or the achievement or what we need as our output, you know, what we're there, what's the job we're there to do. So if everyone's clear on that, then of course there's lots of space to have different ways, approaches, values to get there. That is a really good question though.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely
and some difficult ones, I think. Yeah, sorry, yes.
I think, you know, you're absolutely right. You know, personality traits and, you know, things that come down to us being as simple as, like, I don't know, whether somebody is artistic or not, or they are creative, or, you know, mixing and blending different personality traits in teams, which is the role of a leader, to pick out these, you know, pick out the different personality traits, is to, you know, mix all of these people together into a hot pot of, you know, coming out to get to, you know, it doesn't matter how the journey is, just as long as you get there in the end. And that, you know, that is the kind of role of various different schools of thought, and, you know, people who may clash and not necessarily agree with each other. But yes, that's great. Marisha, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, and this is perhaps an interesting question that perhaps there are schools of thought, and there's some management theories about, like, certain personalities, you know, are more suited towards leadership, or certain even physical traits are more, you know, more the type of leadership figure. You know, what do you think about this? You know, are we kind of hopefully maybe getting rid of these whole ideals that there is somebody is tall, well built, as a strong personality? What are your thoughts around this kind of question?
Yeah, I think I've seen it change, and certainly in the organisation that I work in, if I consider, you know, the issue of gender, you know, if we went back to 2015, there were only less than 25%, so of consuls generals, ambassadors, high commissioners around the world from Australia who were women. Wow. So 75% were men. And they, you know, we didn't have that diversity. Now, this is an organisation where we took in equal numbers of outstanding graduates every year, very, you know, highly accomplished and quite ambitious people. That something was happening in our organisation. We had to look at that systemically, and we did. And the organisation, you know, looked at its policies and was very brave in going through and thinking, what are the unconscious bias? What are the systems? What are we doing to support all of our people who are equally as talented and ambitious? And over that period, it's changed remarkably. Last time I looked, it was well over 40%, you know, women's representations in this role, and that's changed in quite a short period. I think that's a fantastic example, because it's a little bit of the you can't be what you can't see, potentially, you know. And I am in the organisation, I've been doing a lot of work with our fantastic, with the Indigenous Employees Network. We have a network of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees who are outstanding diplomats, and also we need to make sure that there's a representation of Australia's diversity more broadly. Yeah. And how are we supporting and engaging and supporting that? Because, yeah, leadership needs to reflect 2021, and the opportunity. What we're after is talented people to do the roles, and that, you know, doesn't look the way that it traditionally always has.
Yeah, true. And that sort of leads me on, Jos. You know, if we're to sort of reflect on ourselves, you know, and me being a leader here in the organisation, and I'm, you know, and having been a leader in India and various other places, being a leader of myself is so challenging, you know, in many different scenarios. I want to be the best leader I can, but, you know, even I sometimes miss the objective of, you know, certain things in it, you know, like I mean, you're trying to do your best, and sometimes, you know, things can distract you or carry you away from your actual centre goal. What is your advice regarding self-leadership that helps you achieve your objectives to, you know, to keep on track?
Yeah, I think it depends. You need to adjust that for the situation that you're in. And, you know, if there's been periods where I've gone into new roles, that's a very different time in a career than when you've, you know, at the moment I'm coming up to the 3rd year in this post. And so as a leader, you need different things at different times. I have in previous roles engaged a coach, you know, to have professional conversations. And again,
good idea.
Been, very structured conversations to make sure that I'm reflecting and thinking about, you know, those situations at work that challenge all of us. How do I bring my best to work through that? That's been really important to me. You know, for some people it'll be journaling. For others, it's finding. I think women are probably too often told to get a mentor, but, you know, mentors have their place. You know, I think kind of being confident in the work skills that you need for the role is always very helpful. So the technical ability, making sure that you are a high performer where you need to be. And then, I think kind of taking your career very seriously, being very proud of what you do, you know, means that you will always want to do your best at it, you know, creating those times to reflect. Yeah.
And Julianne, that is so important, that self-reflection. Oh, hello.
almost
you spoke too soon, Julianne. She's gorgeous.
Continue.
That's okay. And that's quite interesting, because I was just about to say, it doesn't matter what job you're doing, in what leadership position you're doing. Don't be so hard on yourself, I think, is probably a thing you will resonate with me on that. And self-reflection really helped me become a better leader. But not being too tough on yourself when you do make mistakes. And you've raised some really, really important things there. And maybe it's not just women, but it's people that are put into a position that they've sort of never done before, and they're learning on the role, as well. And that's important for us to understand, okay, where is my strength? You know, where is my leadership? Where do I need to improve? And brilliant idea about getting a coach to keep you on track. So definitely. Jos, you had another question?
Yep, sure. I've just had one sent through. So question is, there are leaders who are born to lead and born into leading. So Malcolm Fraser, who was Australian PM, Queen Elizabeth II. But there are also leaders who fought their way to the top. Barack Obama and other members of Bob Hawke, Paul Keating. In your view, Julianne, what kind of leader is better? One who's born into it, or a leader who has worked hard and succeeded to become the leader?
Either. The leader who is the both is either of those things. It's the person who's most passionate for the role that they do, and who wants to be there, who wants to turn up and to work hard and to do their best in it, and to bring the best of themselves to contribute that. And this is what I really grappled with when we came up, you know, with this this kind of topic session. And I should give my apologies for not having the answer for the born or made. I do think it's a fascinating question. And, you know, I was busy asking my husband this morning, you know, do you think a leader is born or made? Just to see if he had an answer. He didn't. Although it was very interesting, I found out he was much more a nature guy than a nurture guy. It's the situation will help make the leader. And again, when I think about COVID, none of us wanted this. That's not how you ideally wanted to attend university through COVID days. And yet here it is. So this is the opportunity that we've all been presented to reflect to, I mean, personal resilience. Mine has gone up and up, which is great. Flexibility, you know, I come out of this this period with so many more skills as a leader that I will take forward to new situations that I'm pretty grateful for. And that's about perspective. And I listened to one seminar the other day where someone said, you know, your perspective might be that you are stuck at home or you are safe at home in a lockdown. Now, that's a very simple thing, but a huge way to look at it. And so, you know, this period might be something that you reflect on all the things that you think that you've lost or and didn't have an opportunity to do, or to flip that around, this is an opportunity for all the things that you've gained. And I would say anyone who's been through some pretty harsh lockdowns, and I know, Marisha, you've been through lockdowns in many countries now, that is a resilience that is built through that.
Yeah. I think I did 67 days without seeing another human in India, and I think Andrew Ford is might be watching this in Australia, in Canberra, actually, who will be a guest in one of our upcoming Changemakers series as well. So, but he also, when we were doing our 67 days of lockdown alone, it was really, really tough. And yes, indeed, what amazing thing, you know, to finish up on, to talk about that whole idea of resilience and understanding yourself. So brilliant work, brilliant, so insightful, and, you know, thank you so much, Julianne. Jos, I'm going to pass over to you. Do you have any last questions, or you're going to start?
I think we'll probably take one more question. Let me just have a quick look.
There's so many questions coming through. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
They've been thick and fast today, but we can't keep you forever. So let's. Yeah. Okay. So, do you think that leadership should be earned through respect from others, or by proving that you are better and by performing better than others?
Okay, so I think you earn respect, but I think people respect people who do a good job. So it's not necessarily, I kind of don't accept the premise of doing better than others. A leader is about creating a situation where everyone can perform to their best. You know, there will be people in every team who bring skills, you know, that are more developed and more experienced than a leader necessarily. And the leader's job is to create the environment where everyone can contribute those skills and has the chance to do that towards the goal. But I do think I think a lot about respect in a workplace and how that is developed, and you know, that sense of whether it's earned. To me, it has never come along with a title. Just because you know, I have the honour of serving in this amazing role, and you know, it is absolutely a privilege to have served as Consul General for Australia. Absolutely proud of that. Just because you have the title is not enough to then think that you automatically deserve the respect. You then need to honour the role by working really hard, by serving your team as a leader, and by creating a workplace where everyone is respected. So hopefully on my good days, I've come somewhere close to that.
You are a true inspiration. Thank you, Julianne. Really, we are humbled to have you. Oh. Thank you. Jos?
Thank you very much. Yeah, so this is going to bring us to the end of the Q&A now. So thank you very much for everyone's questions. Apologies if we couldn't get through everyone else's answers. This is also bringing us to the end of the Changemaker session for today. So I'd just like to invite our participants to have their final words. Julianne, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just thank everyone who has tuned in, and certainly to those who've engaged. If we haven't got to the questions, I'm on Twitter, Cowley_Julianne. So I'm more than happy to chat and connect if people are on that platform further because these are very interesting ideas. But I do want to say again to Dr. Ha and Marisha and Jos, thank you for the invitation. I think it's fantastic that Swinburne is doing this. I think this is what represents, you know, Australian universities that are doing really exciting things overseas. We have brilliant education that we take to the world, but that is because the students that we attract open-minded, enthusiastic, passionate, and contributing to what the next generation will be. So I am really, really excited that you've chosen Swinburne, that you are here engaging, and thank you very much for spending the time listening to me ramble this morning. Hopefully that was all right.
Not rambling.
Thanks, Julianne. Dr. Han, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, thank you so much, Julianne, for today, this morning, and I hope that it inspires our students a lot when our student, some of the students first start the university online, right? So they really, if you have a very strong leadership mindset in that way, I think that they're gonna coping with the situation, and then they are moving very fast in the future with the new world. It is the virtual world, it is the world of new thing, and they can get a new opportunity like talking with you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Marisha, would you like to have a few words?
Yes, thank you so much, Julianne. It's as I said, it has been wonderful to talk to a leader such as yourself, and also I would like to acknowledge Dr. Ha's leadership in all of this, in the challenging scenario, and we all are aspiring for wonderful things, and to lead the next generation, and maybe guide as well the next generation of people in education. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. And yeah, finally, I just want to say thank you from myself. I thought your answers were awesome, Julianne, and I think that our students will really take on board, listen to your inspiring words, and take away something from this. So yeah, thank you very much. So this brings us to the end of today's Changemaker session. I want to thank everybody who's taken part, again, especially Julianne. Your insights have been amazing, and the students will definitely get some excellent pointers of how to become change makers and global citizens, and how they can really push their lives forward. I want to thank all of the audience who joined us today for interacting and providing some really useful questions. And then finally, I just want to remind everybody that the next episode of the Changemaker series will be on Thursday, the 4th of November at 7 p.m. And that will be with Anthony McLaren. He is the Vice Chancellor of St. Mary's University in London. So we look forward to seeing you all there, and we can't wait to see you soon. Goodbye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank
We
you.
are global citizens. This is a whole other life Little Australia of Swinburne, Vietnam, with Global Citizen and Career Development Program 2020. What does it mean to be a global citizen? A global citizen can study anywhere, live anywhere, and work anywhere. A global citizen cares about global issues, uses critical thinking and knowledge to look for solutions and apply them to the real life. A global citizen cannot lack a presentation and debate skills. Why we debate? For good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflicts, arguments, debates, researches, practice academic integrity. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. All debaters have learned a great lesson on teamwork and discipline to give out a true intellectual party. English, social skills, and critical thinking. These are three important foundations of any global citizens. We all want to make the world a better place for ourselves and future generations. This is the main reason we bring the perfect program, Global Citizen, into Swinburne, Vietnam. I am a global citizen. Become a global citizen, unlock your power, and delight your future. Let's get started with journey to become a global citizen at Swinburne, Vietnam.